welcome back to Library Books Are Cool. My name is Alex, and what I want to get into today is a lot because I am very, very excited. Um, January was my greatest reading month of all time. I got 5 books read. Five. I got 5 books read. That's the most I've ever read in a single month in my life. We will get right into the January recap, and then I want to get into my February TBR that I am extremely excited about. So, to kick things off, January was phenomenal. I'm going to talk about these books in the order that I read them. I clearly do not have them anymore. But the first book I read was All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. So let me tell you up front that I was very ecstatic about this book to begin with. It was my second Cormac book that I've read. It is pretty much these two boys that go traveling to Mexico for work, and some things happen that it doesn't make sense for our main character to be 16 years old. Anyway, that's All the Pretty Horses. So the next book I read was, what did I read next? The next book I read was Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. I already have a full video outlining my thoughts on this. I'm not going to get into that one too much either. So jumping into the third book I read, that was Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. And whoo, let me tell you, a book for fathers. Oh my. So this book is essentially um, an older father. He's in his 70s and his son is 7, 8. And it pretty much is his journaling to his son, talking about his life because he's not going to be able to be there as he grows up because he is dying. And he wants to give him that fatherly wisdom and talk about all of those things that we want our fathers to talk about. And we as fathers want to talk about to our children. Um, and he knows he's not going to have that opportunity because his son is just so young that he's not going to be able to grasp everything. So he's writing in this letter, and that's pretty much all this book is. So that's Gilead. Highly recommend. That book is just phenomenal. And if you are a parent, I'm sure you will understand exactly what I mean. The next book I read was All My Puny Sorrows. So this book was really interesting because I deal with mental health a lot in my job. So typically I steer away from it. I used to work inpatient mental health, and how it's written a lot of the times is um, not very accurate in my opinion. And that's one of my biggest critiques in books is not writing mental health well, not writing inpatient well, and things that just don't make sense. So I'm not going to delve too much into it, but so in this book, we are following two sisters, one of which is 6 years older, and she seems to have her whole life together. She is pretty much a piano prodigy. Um, she's in a great relationship, but through her entire life, she has always wanted to not be alive. And that is something that obviously the younger sister has struggled with herself. So you kind of get to see the inner dynamics of the other side of that. And it's really interesting to see that part of it written in the way it is in that book. So, and lastly, I read A Game of Thrones by George R. Martin. My goal is to read one of these books a month. Kind of in the background, this is primarily, I listen to this book almost exclusively on my commute to and from work. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. This book is so good. Oh my God, it's so fun. I am not a fantasy reader. I'm not really sci fi. I'm not any of that stuff. Um, but boy, it was fun. Um, you get so much. If you've seen the TV show, you know exactly what I mean. But if you've seen the TV show, read this book because, oh my goodness, it is so fun. And I think everyone should take time to read this book. It's a huge fantasy. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's got amazing character. I think the dialogue is awesome. The world building is excellent. And overall, it is just a book that It honestly has become my comfort read after a long day of work. I'm like, I cannot wait to just sit in my car and drive for an hour and a half home and listen to this man tell me a story. That's it. All right. So, with January being one of the greatest reading months of my life, I am up here. I'm on cloud nine with my reading, and I am a bit overly ambitious, I think, with February, but I'm going to try to knock it all out. So, to get started, look at this. Look, look, look at this. This is this is what I'm reading for February. One, two, three, four, five, six. Six books, one of which is the second Game of Thrones book. So February, what is that? So February is Black History Month, and in honor of that, I wanted my books to be focused on Black authors. So other than George R. Martin's Game of Thrones, um, obviously not a Black author. Man, does coffee ever just you know what I mean? Just yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, the next book. Oh man, oh man, Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. This is my first Baldwin novel, and I cannot even tell you how excited I am to finally get into a book by him. And boy, this is something. This is not at all what I had expected it to be. Like I mentioned, I knew absolutely nothing about this book going into it. I didn't even read the about. Even in the library, checking it out, I just knew this is the book. This is the book I'm looking for February for sure. This is my number one. Um, and I found it. Didn't even read the first line. I just brought it on home, and I didn't even open it until I started to sit down to read it. Man, this is pretty. This is a pretty novel. Um, you know what? I'm just going to read the back of it to you. Um, and if you want to be like me and going completely blind, feel free to skip this part. Um, so I'm just going to read the back of it to you, and then we'll read the first line. So, set in the 1950s Paris of American expatriates, liaisons, and violence, a young man finds himself caught between desire and conventional morality. With a sharp, probing imagination, James Baldwin's now classic narrative delves into the mystery of loving and creates a moving, highly controversial story of death and passion that reveals the unspoken complexities of the human heart. Man, I am 62 pages into this. I've read it, I think, a total of a day. I'm not a very fast. I'm not a very fast reader. I don't have a ton of time to read, um, but I sat down with this book for about an hour and a half, and I cannot stop. I cannot stop wanting to read the next page. So let's get into the very first line. I stand at the window of this great house in the south of France as night falls, the night which is leading me to the most terrible morning of my life. Damn. Damn. Giovanni's Room, James Baldwin. So excited to delve deeper into this novel. That's right. That's right. That's a good cup of coffee. So the next book is a collection of poetry by Amanda Gorman called Call Us What We Carry. Um, I don't know it. I don't know if you all read poetry very often. I'm just certainly, whenever I first got into reading and writing, poetry was like a big thing for me. I was like, oh, it's so good. I've kind of steered clear of poetry a lot because I don't really know why. There's not really any particular reason. But I see Amanda Gorman floating around Instagram and YouTube and videos pretty frequently. I think her poetry just is so beautiful. And so, Amanda Gorman, Call Us What We Carry. Really excited to finally read a poetry collection by her. So let's just break into it. I think with this one, I'm going to read the first stanza. Um, So the first poem is called Ship's Manifest. Allegedly, the worst is behind us. Still, we crouch before the lip of tomorrow, halting like a headless haunt in our own house, waiting to remember exactly what it is we're supposed to be doing. I think I want to get an audiobook of this so that I can hear her say these words because I think she has such a good voice for it. Anyway, Amanda Gorman, Call Us What We Carry. Really excited to get into that in February. The next book is Beloved by Toni Morrison. Um, I've only read one other book by Toni Morrison, and that is arguably, other than this, one of her more popular ones. It's called The Bluest Eye. And I read that so long ago. It was right whenever I was getting back into reading as an adult, and I loved it. Her writing is phenomenal. Um, and I think there's a lot to say about this book because I'm pretty sure almost everyone has at least heard of this book. So, in this book, we are following a mother who has recently escaped slavery. Um, she lost her husband, she's lost a child, she's pretty much um, battling her past and present, and she's trying to raise a family. Um, with all of the experiences that she has gone through. So it sounds like a very dark book, but also at the same time very wholesome. So very excited to get into this one. So let's break into the first line. So with this book, I'm actually going to read the first two lines because they're both extremely short, and I think the second line is super interesting. So I-24 was spiteful, full of baby's venom. Beloved, Toni Morrison. Um, really excited. All right. Okay. Next one is one that has been on my TBR for a very long time. I think everyone knows the name, everyone knows this book. That is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And holy cow, I am so stoked to finally break into this book. It has been on the back burner for a very long time for me. I have no idea why. I've just never gone around to actually picking it up. Um, so February 2026 is the year. This is a memoir of her life, and I think it's really going to open up her poetry to me. Um, so my intention is to read this book and then next month get a collection of her poetry. So let's break into this guy and read the first line. So the opening line to this is kind of a collection. It is kind of a dialogue. So I'm just going to read the first little bit. What you looking at me for? I didn't come to stay. I hadn't so much forgot as I couldn't bring myself to remember. Other things were more important. What you looking at me for? I didn't come to stay. And that is the opening to I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And I am so looking forward to this. So, the last book is a novel turned movie that I've actually not seen the movie for, but that is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. And I'm actually just going to read the about on the flap to this for you. Winner of a Pulitzer Prize and a National Book Award, the novel tells the story of two sisters, one a missionary in Africa and the other a child wife living in the South, who sustain their loyalty to and trust in each other across time, distance, and silence. I'm going to leave it there. There's more to it, but I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave it there. I think, and we are going to hop into the very first line of this beautiful novel. Dear God, I am 14 years old, and that's it. That's all we got. That is the first line to this book. Um, This is primarily letters from one sister to the other. So that's why it's addressed that way. So, Color Purple very, very excited to finally get into this one that I've, again, just heard so much about. Anyway, ambitious, an ambitious reading list for me for February, and I could not be happier with where I am with my reading so far in 2026. Um, where are you at, man? Where are you at? What have you read? What are you reading? What is your TBR? What book are you most looking forward to in February? Because I can tell you right now, it is this guy right here, Giovanni's Room for me. And if you don't know what you're going to be reading, I definitely recommend checking out some Black authors in honor of Black History Month. So that's about all I got for you. All right, keep you updated. Thanks for being here. Uh, bye.